When you first start out in investing, how do you know which books actually matter? I didn't, and I wasted months and months of time with no results. After reading 50 investment books from the likes of Charlie Munger to Warren Buffett, I noticed that the same investing principles will constantly repeat. In this video, I'll give you the 7 simple step roadmap that any beginner can follow. I'll also link the books in the description below if you're interested in purchasing them. So when I first started out investing, all I did was go to Google, search what is the best investing book. I found one and bought it off Amazon and found that the entire book basically just didn't make any sense. It was filled with a bunch of charts basically from the get-go, and I had no prior knowledge of how to actually analyze it, and so I got stuck. I bought even more books, and then that continued on and on for years. I was also told by friends and people online that, well, fund managers can't beat the market, so what's the point in you even trying? And then I got kind of discouraged. And yet conversely, I saw people on Wall Street and people on YouTube that were making millions and millions of dollars off of either trading stock or value investing that I thought, well, if they can do it, then why can't I do it? A great example is somebody like Mohnish Pabrai, a person who achieved returns of as high as 60% in the late 1990s, yet he has a background in computer science, which is completely unrelated to finance. Or somebody like Peter Lynch, who achieved returns as high as 29%, which completely outperformed the standards of the market at the time, which achieved around 15%. Now, the first step in this process is one of the most important, and yet it's one of the most overlooked. I believe that most people are just constantly spending, sitting back, not really looking at what they're doing, and then at the end of the day, hoping that it will all just work out. This cycle can get worse over time. It is completely avoidable. If this feels like you're not alone. The author of the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, states, "You don't need complexity. You need automation, clarity, and consistency." He first starts by asking the reader, what does your ideal life look like? What do you want to spend more money on? What do you not really care about? His philosophy, simply put, is this: spend money on things that you actually love, cut everything else out mercilessly. Though there are many applicable takeaways from this book, I'll order them as such. Start by eliminating high interest debt that you have. This could be a credit card or a line of credit that you find is very high and it's hard to manage. Number 2 is improving your credit score. Don't open so many accounts, just make sure you pay your bills on time. Open the right accounts through your brokerage. 1 checking, 1 savings account, and 1 tax-free account. This will differ based on where you live, so I'm not going to give specific recommendations. Once set up, we want to automate our bills and automate our contributions. That means anytime you have a bill coming in, it should be immediately paid through your bank account. And anytime you have any income coming from your job or whatever you do for work, that should immediately go into your brokerage account and go right into the fund that you're invested in. Finally, we want to start investing in index funds and low-cost ETFs. These are great for beginners, and the ones listed on screen you should be able to access through any brokerage account. They're broadly diversified and don't really require you to have any prior knowledge. While starting with a framework is extremely useful, what actually matters is the mentality that you apply to that framework in determining whether or not it will succeed or it will fail. I see a lot of people who feel this need to buy the big house, buy a car, or buy this fancy phone, and yet it isn't really necessary, but it makes them feel like they're rich. Yet for most people, buying all these random things doesn't actually give them financial strength. If you relate to this, then you could read a book like The Psychology of Money, where the author states, "Behavior matters far more than intelligence when it comes to financial success." Our ultimate goal in investing is to avoid self-sabotage. Most of the time in investing, it isn't necessarily because we don't know enough about the business, it's because our emotions get in the way, such as from greed or fear or ego. And I can honestly say from watching hundreds and hundreds of podcasts from the greatest investors and reading their books, one of the most important factors in their investing practice is the discipline that they convey towards not only their investing, but their actual lives. So this mindset can be applied in a couple of different ways. Number 1, don't confuse activity with productivity. I see a lot of people who have this need to log into their brokerage account, click on every little thing to see how their little funds are doing, and then actually get nothing out of it. If you find that you're anxious, just do something else. Go for a walk, talk to a friend, watch a movie. You don't need to be watching your portfolio every minute. So step number 2 is to create systems that give you rules so that you can actually eliminate that emotion from your investing practice. So the obvious example in this case was the automation of contributing funds into your brokerage account and then making sure that those directly go into the fund that you're investing in. And number 3, and one of the most important factors in investing, is just simply stay in the game. This constant process of buying and selling securities back and forth is honestly one of the most detrimental aspects of investing that I see in the world right now. And your main goal should just be get into investing, stay in it, and just ride it out for as long as you possibly can. And all these concepts can be encapsulated by some of the greats, like Charlie Munger, who's talked about this in many of his different discussions in his books, where he said that this temperament of being patient and calm and rational in times where it's unbelievably stressful is definitely a huge competitive advantage. Now that we have a framework in place and a general mentality change has occurred through the books that you've read, we now need to look at whether or not you're a producer or a consumer. As a consumer, by definition, you're someone who constantly buys things and, well, consumes it. That could be simply through social media, could be watching Netflix, could be many different formats, but ultimately you aren't a producer. A producer would be someone that creates something. For example, by being here and investing your time to try and learn more about investing and improving your skills, you're getting one step closer to becoming a producer. And this contrast between consumer thinking and producer thinking is at the heart of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This book is based around two dads that Robert Kiyosaki had throughout his life, both having completely different mentalities. The poor dad was a highly educated person who relied heavily on his income in order to survive. The poor dad worked hard. He had good grades, but he was constantly trying to consume. He wasn't necessarily producing outside of his job. The rich dad, by contrast, wasn't a highly educated man in the traditional sense. He did, however, have a lot of skills, and he would buy assets that would produce income for him, not necessarily work directly for his money on a per hourly basis. Yet the core lessons of this book are simple but very powerful. So when we're starting out, we want to look at buying assets that produce income that puts money into our pocket. So this could be something as simple as buying vending machines, which is definitely an odd business, but you could do. You can also look at buying dividend-paying stocks, or dividend-paying ETFs are another great option, and starting a business based on some sort of a skill. So this could be a service-based business that you could start. And so for number 2, we want to look for incomes that aren't directly tied to the hours in which we output. And I'm also going to list a particular set of businesses that you could start yourself here that would actually help you to earn income without you having to tie it to your time. And finally, you don't need a degree to become financially successful. And so that's obviously why you're here trying to learn about this. But again, you can learn particular skills that will help you to progress, and ultimately you'll need to find out what the market gap is of what those skills that you will be needing. And that's where you go to places like Reddit. You ask questions on the forum, or you go to Quora, or any of these kinds of places that can help you get feedback on what kinds of things that you could start. So now you have quite a few things at hand. You've got your framework and your mentality and more of a producer instead of a consumer mindset. We can now shift more towards the individual investing side, which is specifically value investing. We've gone from debt reduction, understanding savings, and some basic investing frameworks to now looking more at specific organizations and businesses, and not just simply the tickers themselves, but we're going to look into the financials. We're going to try to understand businesses that we understand that are in our wheelhouse. And this was pioneered by people like Benjamin Graham and all the way through to Warren Buffett. So the core idea of value investing is simple. Buy great businesses at good prices and hold them forever. And for me, my favorite book on this topic is Rule Number 1 by Phil Town. And so Phil Town actually started as a riverboat guide and eventually went on to transition into Warren Buffett style value investing that he eventually took further and created a fund called the Rule Number 1 fund that you can actually track yourself. And the name of this book actually comes from a famous quote from Warren Buffett where he stated, Rule number 1, don't lose money. And rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. So Phil Town created this framework for the 4 M's, which consists of the main areas of investing that you need to focus on in order to understand whether you should invest in a business or not. So the first M is the meaning, which is to say, do you understand that business? The second one is the management, which is, are the management honest and do they have integrity and are they trying to invest the money appropriately in that business? The third M is the moat, which is to say, is there something like a network moat, like say something like Meta, or is there a toll bridge moat like a railroad company would have for a train track? There's a variety of different examples for this. And finally, and one of the most important factors is the last M, which is the margin of safety, which is, are you buying this company at an appropriate price relative to its true value? So many investors have actually used the system, including myself, and seen absolutely great returns over time, even in comparison to the market standards and the fund managers that we're supposed to be competing against. So I would highly recommend this book if you are interested in trying to get your own investing practice going for individual securities, and you're a little bit more of an intermediate level investor that wants to go beyond the standards of your ETFs and your index funds and all your more generic diversified funds. While I do stand by the rule number 1 framework in general, I would say there are some details that we need to add to make it even better. So one of the things we should be considering when we're investing in individual securities is this concept of asymmetric bets, which Mohnish Pabrai, the famous author of The Dondo Investor, states as heads I win, tails I don't lose much. And what that means is that we're looking for bets in which the downside is very limited in terms of our potential for loss, but our upside is extremely large. And therefore, we're putting the odds in our favor in the best possible scenario. One of the famous examples that he gives is the Patel family, who've been buying up motels and hotels for decades. And the way they were able to start that with very little money in the beginning is because their families moved in and they were taking care of all the property. So their maintenance expenses were extremely low. And they just kept doing this over and over and over again, buying more motels until they were able to have a massive share of the overall motel and hotel market in the United States. So starting with some of the key points for this book would be number one, live by your own inner scorecards. And this applies not just in life, but also to your investing practice. And this means, did I make the right decision based on what I know and believe? And not, did people approve me? And do I look smart? So number two is we're trying to look for businesses that we can easily understand. Again, similar to what we would say in rule number one, but we can look at specific examples. So we can say things like the waste management business sector we can look into, or funeral homes, historically very boring businesses that nobody wants to get involved in, yet there's a lot of opportunity because consumers don't necessarily shop around a lot. And number three is become a shameless cloner. And so what we can do is we can actually view the portfolios of some of the greatest investors, whether it be Phil Town's rule number one, or Pabrai, who has Pabrai funds, or many others like Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. We can actually see what they're buying, what they're selling. Now, there are some caveats to this in that we don't want to just copy verbatim all the time. Again, we want to understand the businesses, but we can do that through websites like Data Roma, and there's a bunch of other ones like, say, Ticker Terminal that we can use as a guide to what could be a good idea. So on top of the principles that we learn in a book like The Dondo Investor, we can also extend this even further with a book like 100 Baggers. So 100 Baggers, what they do is they show a bunch of companies historically that have multiplied their share price by over 100 times. So one of the reasons why I like this book so much is that it teaches people to actually focus on quality businesses rather than just any business. And so when I look at a lot of people who are investing, they'll say things like, oh, you can just kind of invest in a whole bunch of businesses and you'll do well. But really what we should be doing is looking at holding really quality businesses for the long term. And so this ties in perfectly with the first key principle of this book, which is when you have a winner, just let it keep going for as long as you can. Now, there are caveats of this. Obviously, if the business begins to break down because there's something fundamentally wrong, then you can consider selling it. But that's usually one of the biggest mistakes of even the greatest investors is they don't hold their winners as long as they should have. And so the second key concept of this book, again, is to be very selective. And so we want to use this baseball analogy, which is to say when you're playing baseball, it's 3 strikes you're out. But in investing, we don't actually think like that. It's actually more a principle of we wait and we wait and we wait. And only when it's that perfect opportunity to strike, then we go and we try to invest in that business. And finally, one of the other key principles of some of the great businesses, and there's a variety of tips in this book, but we want to look for businesses that are founder run. And so some great examples that we could find on the stock market would be Meta right now is currently run by Mark Zuckerberg, or we could look at Amazon's success where Jeff Bezos was the main guy that started it in the late 90s and it progressed into this unbelievable compounder. And so these businesses run so well in part because these CEOs have skin in the game and they really care about the underlying vision. And another example would be Apple with Steve Jobs, where he was unbelievably committed and relentless in his vision for what Apple was to become. So finally, we want to look at a book that culminates all the investing knowledge of the great investors into one. And that's the book Richer, Wiser, Happier by William Green. And so in this book, they actually bring interviews from the likes of John Templeton and Mohnish Pabrai and Charlie Munger and a couple of different other investors to explain to people the temperament that they're going to need for investing and for life as well. So what makes this book so powerful, though, is that it explains the exact temperamental characteristics of each one, and they differ slightly, but how they were able to stay rational in times of fear and actually use those times of fear to their advantage, which allowed them to get outsized returns in the market. So just going over some of the key points from this book. So number one would be protecting your money is more important than just trying to go for extreme returns. And number two, a good life and good investing habits are directly interconnected. So we really want to make sure that the underlying principles that we apply to our investing practice are also allowing us to have a stable life that actually makes sense for us and for our family and for our friends and for everyone else. And so when we look at a book like Richer, Wiser, Happier, we really want to think of it in the context as the glue that binds all the other concepts together. And so in the context of a beginner investor, the reason why this book is so nice is that it gives you a perspective of what the greats are saying, but it doesn't go completely over your head and become so confusing. And that's basically it. Now that you've learned some key personal finance techniques, the only thing left to do is to apply it yourself. I've left a couple of videos in the description below, and I'll have them here as well, that you can actually see how I do it. And with that, thank you for watching.